It is great to have you with us on this Wednesday morning. I'm Julie Grant, and this is Court TV Live. We're in Montana for the sentencing of defendant Daren Abbey. He was found guilty in a brutal campsite murder near Big Sky. Prosecutors say that Abbey used multiple weapons to attack Dustin Kjersem back in October of 2024. Investigators first thought that it was a bear attack. That was until DNA on a beer can linked Abbey to the crime scene.
This appears to be a heinous crime committed by an individual who had no regard for the life of Dustin Kjersem. As he approached the site, he realized someone was staying there. He stated Dustin welcomed him to the campsite and offered him a beer. At some point, this individual struck Dustin Kjersem with a piece of solid wood, stabbed him in the neck with a screwdriver, and ultimately hit him with the axe.
Abbey claimed self-defense, but the jury convicted him of deliberate homicide and tampering with evidence. This morning, we're airing some brand new unaired footage from the sentencing on Tuesday. You're going to hear very emotional victim impact statements, and then you're going to hear from the defendant, and it gets wild. Let's take you into the courtroom now. Here is victim Dustin Kjersem's mom.
I would like to tell you about my son, Dustin. Dustin was a wonderful person. He loved helping others, which would make anyone happy. I would like to say that was all me, but it wasn't. It was his sister, Jillian. Well, things were not ideal at home. That is when Jillian stepped in and had Dustin come live with her. And that is where he thrived. For one thing, going to school in Bozeman, you have so many more opportunities than Three Forks. And living with his sister, he helped with raising his niece, who he loved very much. Over the years, they developed a bond that could not be broken. To say they were close was an understatement. Right now, my daughter's heart is breaking. It is beyond broken, and I don't know how to help her. I do know that losing a child has to be the worst pain you can ever experience. I have 3 daughters who now have to go through life without their brother. There's a little girl who has to grow up without her dad, who she loved very much. This man has destroyed a family, and I hope he has to sit there every day for the rest of his life and think about what he did to mine.
Well, thank you, Ms. Wire. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the court?
No.
Do you understand what the state's recommendation is going to be, that he not be allowed to ever get out of prison?
Yes.
And do you agree with that recommendation?
Yes.
Ms. Wire, the statement that you just read, is it verbatim with what's on the piece of paper there?
Yes.
And would it be okay if we gave that to the court reporter so she can see exactly what you said and put it in the record?
Sure.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Thank you. Unless you have anything else to say, Ms. Wire, I have no further questions. Defense counsel may, though.
All right. Any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, the state would call Kinsey Creighton.
All right. All right, so ma'am, it's just the same thing. Come up to the podium and raise your right hand, and the clerk will give you an oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I absolutely do.
Please stand until your name when you need to raise it.
Thank you. My name is Kay. First name is Kinsey. Last name Crayton.
Ms. Creighton, did you attend the trial in this case?
I did.
Every day of it?
Every day.
And how is it that you know Dustin?
So I know him because he's my partner's the man that I loved most in this world. He was his best friend that he grew up with his entire life.
And you knew him pretty well then?
I did. He lived with us. He actually lived, but there's 2 apartments in my house. He lived underneath us.
And how long did you know Dustin for?
So, I only knew him for about 4 years, personally.
And what is your partner's name?
My partner's name is Matthew Kempschel.
And he testified in this case, is that right?
He did.
Okay. I understand that you'd like to make a statement today.
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I first would just like to share a story about Dustin that really, I think, captures his character. When Matthew and I first, we got together, I was pregnant. I had a daughter, Dahlia, and I was a new mom. I was, the first few months of postpartum, I was stressed. While there's lots of people that love me in the world, no one around really put the time in. I didn't have anybody that was really helping. And every time that Dustin came over, even though I didn't know him, he was the only one that got out the coloring books, sat there with Dahlia. He would give me a wave. I would say, is it okay if and he would give me the wave and say, no, don't worry about it. Go take a shower. Go take a rest. I will be on the floor, literally putting in the time, coloring with Dahlia the entire time. It was something that touched my heart in a way that no other human ever did. And I also just want to say that, I know that you probably have never felt anyone like that. I know that you have not felt anyone like that. And I really am sorry for that. That is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. It is. It really is. I know that. And that is a tragedy. And I just want to tell you that while you may have never felt that, you have changed the course of my entire family. And I don't say this lightly, I really don't. But I really pray that you know what that feels like and know what that loss feels like. And I don't say that lightly. I really don't say that lightly. But this is something that is going to be entrenched into our lives forever. I have a toddler. I have a little tiny sweet human growing, and she knows about death. She says we're dead because she knows that someone is there that loved her and is not there anymore. How am I to explain that to a toddler? And I know you might not care. I know you might not get it, but I really do hope. I really do hope. I hope that you are going to have the rest of your days lived out. You will. And I really do hope that you find a way to make a difference in those lives, to maybe stop something like this happening in another family. I really, really do. Because the cycle of pain to keep on going and going is unnecessary. It's not necessary. And I really hope that you find a way to stop it. In those walls, stop it. There's a lot of pain there. Stop it. The man that I love is forever changed. He's forever changed. He can't even get up and speak today. He's so hurt. Please.
Ms. Creighton, you talked about your daughter, Dahlia, a moment ago.
Dahlia.
Dahlia, how Dustin would play with her when she was really young. And you indicated that you were here during the trial itself. And were you here when Ms. Price testified? And do you remember her testifying earlier in life when Dustin first came to her home?
Yeah.
And do you remember what she said about Dustin's interaction with her daughter?
Well, first I know that he went to every single doctor's appointment with her. He wasn't even there after she was there. He was there before. He went to every single doctor's appointment with her. And he was there. He helped raise her. He was so good with kids. I can't even tell you how much of a blessing he was with the kids. And that's gone. It's just gone now.
You indicated that Matt's unable to testify today?
Yes.
Was it a hard decision for him to make?
Yeah, it's a hard decision for him to make. It's been hard every single day since this has happened. He can barely go on. It's everything is hard, yes, since now. And yes, it's been a very hard decision, but I think that the root of it was he didn't know if you would even care. What's the point? What's the point if you don't care?
But he did provide a statement to the court this morning.
Yes, he
that
did.
the court will consider.
Yes.
You know, I know you're aware that the judge is the one that sentences an individual in our criminal justice system, but
Yes.
and the judge is going to consider numerous factors based on Montana code. But what would you like to see happen?
I mean, I think the only responsible thing is that he's locked up forever. I think that's the only responsible thing. I don't think that you're capable outside those walls. I really don't.
Ms. Creighton.
Wow, like I said, powerful, powerful and emotional victim impact statements from people who loved this victim so much. Dustin Kjersem, the victim in this case, there he is as we head to break. Want to remember him. His life mattered. We'll hear more about him as our coverage continues of the sentencing of convicted killer Daren Abbey.
Are you reporting?
Fire.
The tragic murder of Keith Canero and his entire family.
The defendant repeatedly shot and killed his brother and then moved to murder the rest of the family inside the home.
Their sprawling mansion set on fire.
Paul and Keith were not only brothers but business partners.
This one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here.
The Mansion Murders Trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Thanks so much for being with us on this Wednesday morning. This is Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We're in Montana for the sentencing hearing for defendant Daren Abbey. This guy was convicted for a fatal attack that he carried out on victim Dustin Kjersem. This is at a campsite back in 2024. Now, the death was initially reported as a possible bear attack, but the evidence said otherwise. Let's go back in the courtroom now. We're hearing emotional victim impact statements, and you're going to hear from the defendant as well. Wait for that. Here is Christopher Anderson. He is a close friend of Dustin's.
This becomes such a labor for us in the community when we really need to count on the system of justice to carry out a just sentence. We're all holding so much hate, anger, and pain in our hearts. It's an unnatural state for a human. In fact, knowing all of us who cared for Dustin and loved him so much, it's not in our nature to feel this way. I think of Dustin, I feel his loss, and then I think of Jill and Jaden and Natalie and how much they're hurting and missing him, and how Addie is missing him and will miss him in her future. I think of all the responsibilities they share, the feelings, the pain, and there's not much we can do but take it and find some peace in each other's company and our thoughts of Dustin. We all have had the what ifs and the what we did wrong moments when we think we could have somehow still made a difference or made different choices and had him in our lives. But it's not our choices that we should reconsider or recant. It's not the choices Dustin made for us to reconsider either, as he did what was honorable by offering hospitality, shelter, food, and food to a person in need. It's the choices of a convicted murderer. It's the choices that were made that we all need to take into consideration. In any trial, only certain aspects of evidence or statements can be admitted that pertain to the charges of the convicted. In any trial, only certain aspects of evidence or statements can be admitted that pertain to the charges of the case, but as a community member of the area, I've been privy to general conversations about the convicted and his actions prior to the attack that may be considered hearsay, but reaffirm the fact that you cannot have this man re-enter society under any circumstances, certainly not here in Montana and not in any other state. It's my belief that if more information could be admitted or considered in trial about his character, whereabouts, and state of mind prior to the ambush of my friend, we would have a clear understanding of the motive: rejection. Unfortunately, I must also bring to light that the convicted was well known in the community to drink and be frequenting bars in areas where he was actively violating his probation. What was not known in the community was his background and what we all know, what he's now capable of, and I do hold accountable whatever system of parole or probation that was responsible for him to a degree. It is for this reason that he can never have this opportunity to be on probation or parole ever again. Giving him an opportunity to be paroled puts the public at risk now, 20, 40, 60 years from now. It's been rather uncomfortable hearing the convicted killer telling stories of how he was just hanging out in bars after he took my friend's life, not to mention all his gear, and he danced on his grave. It seems to me that you all, and I'm excuse me for saying this, but you all had him once, you had him twice, you had him too many times, so you have to do a better job and lock him up for good. My apologies if these words may seem like a slight, but my argument must make an impact. It's all that I can do. This concludes my statement, and I thank the court and the parties for my time, and I want to say something about Dustin. He was my most trusted friend. He had the staunch moral compass. He was good in character. He was fun to be around. A light that we all loved has been taken from us. He was amazing with kids. Never got a chance to meet my child, but I got to share pictures with him, and he goes, "Hey, cute kid," and there was a lot more to it than that. And I wish I could share everything about him that I came to know and love with you all, but just to know that it's not there. It's just the worst thing that I could ever imagine happening in my life. And I don't want to keep going through and having 20 years, I got to check up on this guy now. Not only do I have to check up on a child molester that I put away, now I got to check up on this guy. So that concludes my statement, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I don't have any questions. The defense may ask, Mr. Anderson, the defense may have some questions.
No questions, Mayor. Thank you. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. With the court's permission, the state calls Jake Noble.
All right. So, sir, if you just come up to the podium and raise your right hand, and the clerk will give you an oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state and spell your name and get to witness.
My name is Jacob Noble, Jacobnoble. I first met Dustin when he was about 6 years old. I started hanging out with Jill, and he was always there. It was almost annoying. You couldn't do anything without Dustin being right there. And then you grow to love the kid. He was the closest thing to a little brother that I had ever had. I grew up as an only child. He had nothing but sisters, so obviously we got along quite well. When Jill moved into my wife and my house, he would come over on the weekends for craft Sundays, and they would just do all kinds of crafty stuff. And when he had enough of that, we'd go out and we'd go skateboarding. We would just hang out. It was great to be around. after she got legal guardianship of him, I remember I was in Jackson, Wyoming on a ski trip when I got the phone call that Dustin was moving in. And I was like, right on. Hope we can find a bed for him. We had quite a few people in the house at the time, but yeah, he moved right in and worked right into the whole family dynamic that we had going on there. He was great to be around. The last time that I actually spoke to him, he called on the day that my daughter was born. Just out of the blue, he had no idea. Just calls up, "Hey man, how's it going?" That was the way he was. And that has been taken from us. We're never going to hear that. We're never going to hear, "Hey man, how's it going?" We're never going to go skateboarding, snowboarding, fly fishing. All of that's gone because one man's actions. And it rips our guts out. I'm speaking for my wife and myself right now. And I personally think that we get to spend every single day missing Dustin and not having that and not having the light that he brought into our lives. I think that Mr. Abbey should spend every day with no hope of ever breathing free air again.
Mr. Noble, do you have anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, the defense may have some questions.
Oh, this is heavy stuff coming from this courtroom. All of these people who loved Dustin Kjersem so much. His life mattered. And all of these people are advocating so bravely for him. It's not easy to go into a courtroom and to share such personal feelings. Let's bring in our legal analyst guest to get some thoughts from him. He's a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Franz Borghardt is with us. Franz, good morning to you. I know your heart is breaking as you're listening to all of these people. Tell us what you're thinking as you're watching these impact statements being delivered.
So the judge has what on all accounts is a victim that was very well loved, well respected. He was a good guy, which is what makes the defense theory about kind of that self-defense theory, which didn't work, even more far-fetched. This is the opportunity for the victims, the surviving family members and friends and family, to have a voice. They don't get to do that during the trial. They have to sit and watch justice unfold. So if I'm the judge, I'm listening to all this and I'm just adding numbers to whatever sentence I'm going to give Abbey, because frankly, there is a strong argument for this guy never getting out of prison. So that is what we are seeing kind of unfold. Now, what's really interesting and smart is the defense attorney's not really asking any questions. I think it's a smart move to sit on your hands and to let these people have their voice and what little piece they can have. I'm concerned about what statement the defendant's going to make, Julie, because that could derail things pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Oh, yeah, he's going to make a scene. I know that much. I'm waiting to watch it together with you, Franz, and all of our wonderful courties at home. But from what I've heard, he acts up. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Dustin Kjersem's niece. Dustin Kjersem's niece. There she is here on the witness stand, delivering a very heartfelt impact statement for her uncle. Stay with us.
This man has destroyed a family, and I hope he has to sit there every day for the rest of his life and think about what he did to mine.
And my heart was broken. I was broken. My sense of safety evaporated. My world changed in that horrifying moment.
This looks like someone who is proud of what he has done. Someone who, if given the opportunity, would do it again. I believe he should never be given that chance.
Yeah, there's the monster who took the life of victim Dustin Kjersem. And as you just saw in that little montage, there are secondary victims and tertiary victims who have been affected by this heinous act. And it was DNA evidence that the defendant left on a beer can in the victim's camping tent. That's how he got caught. Police said that he went to extensive lengths, stealing the victim's property after he murdered him, and trying to cover up the scene and distance himself. But eventually he was caught by the forensic evidence. Let's go back in now and hear from the victim's niece.
Ms. Bauer, how is it that you knew Dustin?
He is my mother, Jillian Price's brother. He's my uncle.
Were you the girl that he was playing with, that Jill spoke of?
Yes.
How old were you when he came into your house?
Well, he's been there from the beginning. He was 14 when I was born, so.
Okay.
And he's just always been a part of the home.
Okay. And do you have a statement?
I do.
And whenever you're ready, please go ahead and read it.
Dustin has been with me from the beginning. Of course, I never called him Dustin. To me, he was always my Uncle Yo-Yo. Most of the stories you heard of Dustin from those close to him describe him as a younger brother figure in their life. But for me, he felt more like a big brother. I know now I took this relationship for granted. And one of my greatest pains is that we'll never have that again. He was the one who taught me how to tie my shoes, took me to the river, shared tea parties, helped me draw, taught me how to drive, got me my first job. He did about everything and anything. Although these memories have now become some of my most cherished, they also act as a reminder of what can't be. He won't be at my graduation. He won't be at my wedding. He can't meet my children. And he won't be able to see the person he helped me become. Thinking back at these moments we shared, it became clear he was always destined to be a great father. I was so excited when I found out he was going to have a little girl of his own. I remember when I went with him to the ultrasound appointment, and the first time I got to meet Adeline. From the moment she was born, Dustin was in awe of Addie, and I'm ever so thankful for her now, as her presence is the most positive memory of Dustin throughout this dark time. But when I think about her, I'm also filled with guilt. I've had the opportunity to spend an entire childhood with Dustin, which was tragically taken from her. I wish every day that we could switch places so that she could just have a little bit more time with her father. When Dustin passed, my life had to be put on hold. Sorry. School became my last thought. So instead of attending class, I stayed home with my mother. I joined her when she gave her plea to the public, when she went to the funeral home, and I went to Dustin's apartment to help move and take care of his things. This break in schooling was absolutely necessary. Having to attend lectures and interact with my peers normally, all while grappling with the tragic loss of my uncle, was impossible. Because of this break, I'm at least a full year behind in schooling, and I continue to struggle every day. And I have many absences due to court dates, attending therapy, and my own mental health. And on top of that, I've had to walk out of countless lectures and conversations because certain subject matters just brought me right back here, and I couldn't bear listening to them. I've had to send countless emails and many conversations having to describe this situation, which again brings forth all the trauma and this intense grief. Socially, I've noticed a drawing back from those around me. I constantly feel a weight on my chest and have immense feelings of pain, confusion, and grief, and intense isolation. And what makes these relationships difficult for me is my new perspective on people. I have the unfortunate knowledge of knowing what monsters are capable of, and how it feels to lose someone in the most painful way possible. It's hard to look at humanity the same way. Besides my own suffering, having to witness the effect this crime has had on our friends and family has been extremely painful, especially for my mother. She has been the one to shoulder this tragedy. Not only has she had to experience her own heartbreak, but she has been working tirelessly to make sure Dustin gets the acknowledgement, remembrance, and justice he deserves. Just like how she provided him a loving environment when she was a child, she has continued to be the one who steps up for Dustin. But this responsibility has taken its toll, and I can't describe how much it hurts to see my mom experience this kind of loss and suffering. It seems I can never find the right words or offer any kind of advice. But how could you comfort someone who's lost everything? Seeing the person who's taken care of everyone her whole life, who you love so much, bear this kind of weight, this pain is indescribable. Based on all this, I believe that Daren Abbey should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. I am just one story, and as seen in this courtroom, there are many that had the privilege to love Dustin. And all those who cared for him will have to live with the images, the trauma, and the stories, and the overwhelming loss. But importantly, Abby, who has a history of violence and no regard for human life, gets to continue on, while Dustin's life gets cut short.
Miss Bauer, how old are you?
How old am I? I'm 22.
Okay. And how old were you when Dustin passed?
I was 21. So it's about a year ago.
And then how old is Addie now?
She's 9.
Okay.
11, sorry.
11. She's a young girl, though,
yes.
right?
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I appreciate your words. I don't have any questions, but defense may, okay?
Okay.
Any questions?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
And through his niece, we learned that Dustin is leaving behind an 11-year-old daughter. This is so heartbreaking. We're going to hear from his girlfriend when we come back after the break. And then later in the show, we're going to hear from the defendant himself.
I'll be appealing your crooked-ass court system.
All right. That's fine. You can do that. All right. So that just demonstrates where we're at here today. So, all right.
What are you reporting?
Fire. The tragic murder of Keith Canero and his entire family.
The defendant repeatedly shot and killed his brother and then moved to murder the rest of the family inside the home.
Their sprawling mansion set on fire.
Paul and Keith were not only brothers but business partners.
This one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here.
The Mansion Murders Trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
And I personally think that we get to spend every single day missing Dustin and not having that and not having the light that he brought into our lives. I think that Mr. Abbey should spend every day with no hope of ever breathing free air again.
That's Mr. Abbey right there, the monster who murdered Dustin Kjersem. This is an attack at a campsite, and this defendant's behavior was predatory. It was brutal how he attacked and murdered Kjersem and then went back to cover up the crime scene. But eventually investigators caught him. And we're hearing from all of the people who loved Dustin Kjersem so much. Now let's hear from his girlfriend.
My name is Natalie Holloway, NATALIEHOLLOWAY. I'm here today to speak for Dustin, a man whose voice was stolen by Daren Abbey, and to speak to the impact his loss has had on my life. Dustin was the sweetest, gentlest soul I've ever known. He loved being goofy, the outdoors, working with his hands. He loved to cook, and he loved to love. He was calm in a way that felt rare in this world. Nothing rattled him. Nothing made him angry. He was sensitive, thoughtful, caring. He worked hard and took pride in making everything he touched better than he found it. Both Dustin and I came from difficult childhoods, and I was still recovering from an abusive marriage when I met him. He knew what pain looked like, and he knew how to be my calm. When we were together, everything else stopped. The anxiety, the worry, the fear I carried for so many years. And Dustin was my peace in a world that had never been kind to me. He brought back a spark I hadn't felt in decades. He supported me through some of the hardest moments, including when my son spent weeks in the hospital. We were building a future together, a future filled with healing, partnership, and simple happiness we had both been denied for so long. But our time together was cut brutally short by his murder. The day he didn't show up to take me camping, I knew in my gut something was terribly wrong. But I never could have imagined the horror he endured or the fact that a living monster took him from me. Seeing firsthand what happened to him was my undoing. My heart was broken. I was broken. My sense of safety evaporated. My world changed in that horrifying moment. I couldn't get out of bed. I was terrified to leave my house. And I cried for weeks while still trying to parent two teenagers who were watching their mother fall apart. Hours and hours of trauma counseling because the pain was so immense. I spent the time since his death trying to make sense of a world that could allow something so cruel to happen to someone so gentle. Without Dustin, I would have never known what true love felt like. I would have never learned what it means to be safe with someone. The weeks and months after his death were dark and lonely. I struggled at work, unable to focus. I longed for the comfort I had finally found and lost far too soon. Some days I felt like I was drowning in grief, unable to see any way forward. The pain still hits hard, seemingly out of nowhere some days. The trial forced me to relive everything, the fear, the loss, the moment my world broke. It was the hardest thing I have ever endured. Daren Abbey took the life of a man who loved with his whole heart, a man who was a father, a brother, a friend, and so much more to so many people. Dustin touched countless lives, and none of us will ever be the same. This is something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Your Honor, the level of violence Daren Abbey is capable of is beyond comprehension. Dustin did not deserve this. No one does. The danger he poses is real, and it is permanent. He should never be free to do this to anyone ever again. Keeping him in prison for the rest of his life is the only option to protect others and to honor the life that he stole.
Anything else, Natalie?
No.
Well, I appreciate you making the statement. I don't think defense has any questions.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Whew, this is heavy stuff. You really feel for all of these people, don't you? Let's bring in former prosecutor Franz Borchardt to react. Franz, I know you remember those days. These are tough days when you're a prosecutor and you're presenting all of these witnesses to really paint the picture of someone's life. Tell us the picture that is being painted for you as you're sitting back watching right now.
So first and foremost, the prosecution did a fantastic job humanizing this victim, making him a soul that was loved, was a good guy, and more importantly, didn't deserve this. Didn't deserve this behavior, didn't deserve to be murdered. So kudos. They did a fantastic job, Julie. And they've made a case. They've made a case for life. You know, you kind of box the defendant into a corner in the sense that he's got to make a decision. Does he remain silent when given the opportunity to speak? Because look, he has appellate rights, and if he remains silent, everybody understands that. Does he stand up and take responsibility to try to mitigate and to try to give them some kind of peace? Or does he stand up and make a clown out of himself in the proceedings? You know, I think I know which of the three he's going to do, but look, bigger picture, the state has made a case for life.
You're right, Franz. You know, this guy's lucky he's not getting the death penalty. I mean, the details I was reading up on some of this, how he used multiple methods to attack this victim's body. I can't even imagine how this man looked at autopsy. I can't even imagine based on what was done here. Franz, and to think that they almost didn't get him. How about that? That he had cleaned up this crime scene, but then left his own DNA from drinking out of a beer can in the victim's tent. Your thoughts?
The great equalizer, we've seen it in case after case after case, whether current cases or cold cases, the great equalizer is DNA. Your genetic fingerprint, unique to only you. And isn't it just, it's a gift and blessing that they were able to find this can with his genetic material on it. And look, it's circumstantial evidence in the sense that it doesn't show what he did or how he did it, but circumstantial evidence can be powerful if your genetic material is in a place it frankly doesn't belong or shouldn't belong. So thank goodness they found that can.
Mm-hmm. You're so right, my friend. Franz, always great to have you with us. Thank you so much. Friends at home, thank you for being with us for this hour of Court TV Live. We'll hit a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our coverage of the sentencing hearing in Montana. We're remembering the victim, Dustin Kjersem, as we head to break.
Attention.
We are in Montana this hour here on Court TV Live. Welcome back. I'm Julie Grant. We're covering the sentencing of defendant Daren Abbey. This guy was found guilty in a brutal campsite murder that took place near Big Sky. Prosecutors say that he used multiple weapons to murder Dustin Kjersem. This was back in October of 2024. And investigators first thought that he suffered from a bear attack. That was until they found the defendant's DNA on a beer can in the victim's tent that linked him to the crime scene.
This appears to be a heinous crime committed by an individual who had no regard for the life of Dustin Kjersem. As he approached the site, he realized someone was staying there. He stated Dustin welcomed him to the campsite and offered him a beer. At some point, this individual struck Dustin Kjersem with a piece of solid wood, stabbed him in the neck with a screwdriver, and ultimately hit him with the axe.
The defendant tried to claim self-defense at his trial, but the jury didn't buy it. They convicted him of murder and tampering with case evidence. Let's go back in and watch some more brand new unaired footage from the sentencing that took place on Tuesday. You're going to hear lots of emotional victim impact statements from so many people who loved Dustin Kjersem. And you're also going to hear from the defendant himself. And it gets pretty wild. Let's go back in now. Let's hear from Jillian Price, who is Dustin's sister.
Ms. Price, so far today we've heard from Jordan and Chris and other people, and then we also heard from Kinsey. And what struck me is that 3 separate people has called him or characterized him as their best friend. Can you tell the judge about that, about how he made people feel so special?
He was always so present when you were with him. I mean, you knew he was listening, he was interested, he loved learning. I mean, his interactions with people were incredibly genuine.
And do you have a statement to give?
I do, kind of in 2 parts, so it's kind of...
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. The philosopher Immanuel Kant describes the hands as a visible part of the brain. I think of Dustin's hands often. I can see them so well. Those little fingers that instinctively grab a hold when you were just a baby. Holding his hands while he was learning how to walk. Making sure he always held mine when we crossed the street. Witnessing them grow. Holding our hands up to each other's to see if his had surpassed mine yet. I can picture his fingers clumsily working the strings on his first guitar. And then all of a sudden, his hands moving across the frets as though he'd always known how. Around the same age, he broke his finger skateboarding, the only bone he would ever break in his lifetime. Nearing the end of his 15th year, I got to watch those hands nervously pick up my daughter for the first time. The sound of our hands slapping together when we would do our decades-old ritual of our signature one-handed double high five, the dorkiest of high fives known to man. Watching him tie my fishing lures on for me, then watching him show me again how to tie the proper knot, even though we both knew I was just going to ask him to do it again the next time anyways. His big hands that now made my daughter's teacups look extra small as he held them. Never too cool to not stick his pinky finger out as he attended her almost daily tea parties. The hands that were somehow able to teach my daughter to tie her shoes in just one try after dozens of failed attempts by me. Countless hours of conversation in my kitchen while his hands gripped a coffee mug or shamelessly shoveled a surprising amount of food in his mouth. That snowy morning in December when I first got to see him hold his precious little baby. These hands are becoming cut and calloused. He worked so hard with these hands, mastering many crafts. As his daughter grew, he became the master of actual crafts. I can't imagine how many items those hands either helped glitter to oblivion or googly eye. I could see her hand in his while we were ice skating at the Southside Park. I should have been able to observe these hands grow old. I can imagine them growing knobby, riddled with arthritis, from what should have been a full life of working and creating with his hands. But I don't get that. Instead, I get to picture his burnt hands in that tent. The hand I didn't get to hold one last time because his body was not fit to be viewed. No kiss on the forehead. I have to picture him struggling to take his last breath, alone in that tent with this monster. I would have given everything I have to send him off with as much love as I received him with. That was my first part, and the second part.
Was that submitted as a victim impact statement?
It was, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Were you in Moose Creek on October the 10th, 2024? This question was asked of me as I sat witness at Dustin's trial. It was a question I would hear over and over again throughout the court proceedings. A question we all knew the answer to. A question that tortures all of us who know and love Dustin. For me, it's daily, even hourly. If I had been there, could I have saved his life? Could I have made a phone call that could have thrown off his trajectory enough that he didn't end up at that campsite? Can I blame myself for always talking to him about kindness and inclusion? Or the darker thoughts? How I wish it was me up there instead of him? How I would trade fates with him in a second so he would get the opportunity to raise his daughter? I was not at Moose Creek on October the 10th, 2024, but I have been there in my head every day since. I know the person that was there, at times, better than he knew himself. Having grown up together the way we did, we knew each other's personalities to the degree of prediction. We knew exactly what the other was feeling with just a look. The person that drove up to Moose Creek that day is such a kind, enthusiastically helpful, funny guy. I'm sure he sang his way up the canyon. I can feel his energy setting up camp. Dustin was in his element, just ecstatic to be able to show Natalie this piece of him. The person Daren describes meeting in Moose Creek is a stranger to those who know Dustin. Dustin historically has found joy in making people laugh, helping anyone who needed a hand. Dustin has no history of violence. In fact, he avoided conflict. He was not aggressive in any way. In closing, the defense said something to the effect of, "We don't know how Dustin would act that intoxicated, but we do." There was a group of people sitting in that courtroom who had seen Dustin in every state and could have attested to his behavior while drinking. They had 2 witnesses on the stand who they could have asked, but chose not to. The night they came to my home to tell me about Dustin, it became pretty clear as they were telling me the story that they did not believe that this was a bear attack. I was asked if I knew of anyone who would want to hurt my brother. My instinct was an absolute no. I desperately tried to think of anyone whom Dustin may have friction with. Even then, I don't believe anyone would ever want to hurt him. I said to them that night that anyone could have come into his camp and Dustin would be friendly and helpful, whatever they needed, and that he would have been able to be taken advantage of. I was told that doesn't happen. This looked like a crime of passion, someone who had a vendetta against my brother. This was incredibly hard to hear. The idea that I may not know at all the person I thought I knew best. I wanted to shut down completely, to go hide in my room, never come out, but the need to help was stronger. I wanted to assist the detectives in any way to help find out what happened, even if it meant learning something upsetting about Dustin. That never happened. The only thing I found out about my brother through the investigation was that he had bought a Yeti cooler and didn't tell me. And I knew why. He had given me such a hard time for ever spending that much money on a cooler. This is all to say that my brother went up to Moose Creek exactly who he was. The person everyone knows him to be. Dustin did not become an entirely different person that night, and neither did Daren Abbey. While sitting in on Abby's bond hearing, I heard prosecutors rattle off a long list of his prior convictions. Historically, Daren Abbey has shown that he has no regard for other people's property or for the persons themselves. Daren went to Moose Creek that night, exactly who he was as well. With intention, he took my brother's life. He stole from him again. He stole from him again the next night. He was capable of returning, spending time in the tent, Dustin's mutilated body, taking more things. Next level disregard for human life. That sad body lay there alone, loved by so many. And at the trial, we all became witness to the lack of remorse that is had by Abbey as we watched a 1 and 30-second video of him dancing triumphantly, buried my brother's possessions. Daren Abbey exuded more joy in that 1 and 30 seconds than I have been able to muster since the coroner knocked on my door on October the 12th, 2024. This is not a person bogged down with sorrow from having taken a life. This looks like someone who is proud of what he has done. Someone who, if given the opportunity, would do it again. I believe he should never be given that chance. I do know that no matter what Judge Owen decides today, I will suffer far more than Daren Abbey ever will, and somehow I will have to make peace with that.
Ms. Price, was that second statement part of your victim witness statement?
Yes, it was.
Just like to ask you a couple questions, if you don't mind. And I know this isn't what you're here for today, but you did work with the Crime Victims Advocate to fill out some restitution paperwork, is that right?
Correct.
And I believe the amount may have been over $4,000, $4,700 or something like that. You understood that the person you worked with would go and excise the things that were unrelated to the medical visits and stuff that you went to that you were asking for, is that right?
Correct. She was going to itemize, yes.
And you and I talked about that this morning, and what we have agreed with defense counsel and Mr. Abbey is that restitution will be in the amount of $3,800.
Okay.
And are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
And I know this case is nothing about money, but I want to ask you something, because it's something the judge will have to consider in a moment. Even though it's money, do you want the court to order that $3,800?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Something. I don't know.
some sort of accountability.
Do you understand if the court orders that money, that would probably most likely go into his commissary funds, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so if he gets anything, I can take, I'm gonna have to pay it back before he gets even a little something.
Before he gets his ramen noodles or whatever else.
Right.
Okay. Do you have anything else to say to the court? You know, at trial when you testified, there's all sorts of restrictions. This is really your time to say maybe things, maybe you already have too, but to say anything to the court you would like.
I think I mean, I could sit up here all day.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, thank you for your words, and I don't think the defense has any questions.
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, restitution, part of this case. You heard that brought out by the prosecution.